Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the YouTube audiobook series for The Snake and the Rose, written by Abby Matthias. I am Abby Davis, and today we will be reading Chapter 24. If you have missed Chapter 23, link is in the description, or you could just go to the playlist where it's right there. But if you are all caught up and ready to go, we will move on to Chapter 24, Firing Up.
After a while of sleep, my eyes opened to find some sort of large screen displayed in front of me. It looked like the monitor that I used within Abby's head to see through her eyes, only this time the visual showed Abby within her demon body. She was breathing heavily like she ran a marathon and had her electricity power surrounding her. I wanted to take in more of the environment, but before I could, I heard her speak.
Let Darius go now!
And why would I do that? It's not my fault that he was the one I needed. Plus, he's better this way. I can have more control over him, and he will be forced to adapt to his new purpose.
A deeper, echoey voice said, replying back to her. I didn't recognize the new, raspy and echoey voice. However, I was somewhat intrigued by what was going on. I was supposed to be a prisoner within someone's mind. First of all, how could I? I'm not paired with whoever is doing this currently, so really the only person who could imprison me would be my protector child. But most importantly, who would want me so desperately that they would kidnap and keep me hostage? As I kept thinking, the screen kept playing.
I'm not gonna ask you again. Let him go.
You seriously think you shouting is gonna change a thing? How pathetic.
No, I don't think that. I am shouting to display your last warning before I come unglued on your ass.
Oh, you're threatening me? You're messing with the wrong being, kid. I am so powerful now that I can kill you with just one punch. Let me show you a demonstration.
Then the figure started to swing his arm back. No! I screamed as it echoed within the area I was in. After my yell, I was suddenly teleported outside the mind I was trapped in and standing next to Abby. She quickly caught me from falling face first onto the floor and was breathing heavily.
Darius, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Nothing extraordinary happened, I said, hesitantly and confused.
That wasn't nothing. I thought it was too late. I'm just glad it didn't turn out like I thought.
Once she semi-poured her heart out, we heard grunting and groaning coming from behind us.
I don't think our job is done yet.
And Abby turned her head back to the enemy. I turned myself around to find out that Satan was the threat again. He was starting to stand as he looked very beaten up and weak. His face obtained a black eye and drew black blood from his nose while he was trying to catch his breath. With just seeing that, I grew so shocked and surprised that my mouth dropped a little. I had never seen him show signs of weakness or even bleed. The man who made me feel miserable, claimed to be the Almighty, and created this life for me, was fragile. And he most certainly talks like he had all the power still in his court.
You may have gotten some free punches, Darius, but mark my words. Even though we have equal power, I am still the stronger one out of both of us.
What do you mean, equal power? What are you talking about?
I saw your true form, Darius. You are everything that I need for the prophecy. I will get what I want, and you will fall to me if it's the last thing I do.
Well, it will be. You still haven't mastered one thing, you selfish prick.
Abby shouted next to me.
And what's that, you puny human?
He shouted, infuriated. I quickly turned my head to Abby upon her outburst. I had no clue what she was talking about or how she even knew something he didn't. Yet I didn't have time to figure it out before she forcefully grabbed my left hand and raised it up. Looking to the left, I saw she stood sideways to Satan as she firmly had hold of my hand and curled my fingers around hers. After a brief moment, the snake and the rose marking we both had started to glow upon our arms. A tingly sensation started developing upon my body as a ball of energy formed within my chest. A rush of wind started circling around us as all these feelings increased, and I was extremely perplexed. So I quickly spoke aloud to Abby to find answers. Hey, what the hell is happening?
Are you ready?
For what? I don't even know what's going on. Yet I still wasn't going to find out despite my shouting. For when she closed her eyes, the glow from our marking shined brightly and blinded my eyes. I suddenly felt an unfamiliar overcharge of energy flowing into my body as I was lost in the moment. Along with that, it felt as if I was shifting into something else. I definitely grew as I felt my legs and torso stretching. As for anything else, I didn't know. But once all the foreign sensations left my body, I was able to gain my sight to refocus myself. As my eyes opened again, they saw Satan almost cowering in fear as I stared down at him. His face clearly showed how scared he was as his bottom lip quivered and his eyes were extremely wide. Puzzled by his expression, I decided to look down at myself to see quite a surprise. For as I viewed my changes, I saw that I was extremely muscular and had 2 sets of arms. Yet when I tried to move the bottom pair, they just stayed in place. I could still tell the height difference as I now stood a couple feet taller than him and had to peer down upon him. So as I stood feeling extremely powerful and baffled, I felt myself losing control of my face and suddenly heard a voice speaking.
You didn't master the half and half.
As we said that, the body ran forward and jumped while readying our fists to punch. After we were in the air ready to strike our opponent, I abruptly woke up gasping for air. As I sat up frantically in my bed, I instantly examined my sides to reveal no extra set of arms, which relieved my worries. I also took note that I was in my home down in hell rather than the cosplay room again. So knowing I was in the security of my home, I started to take deep breaths to calm my body. Although my emotions started dying down, my mind was still running in circles. Why did I keep having these obscene dreams? Besides the constant deal-making nightmare that I still had with the changed details from a month or 2 ago, I was suddenly having dreams about fulfilling a prophecy. I didn't have them all the time, but it was frequent enough to keep me on my toes in wonder. This was one out of 2 different versions of the prophecy dream I've had now involving Satan and Abby. Except this time, somehow Abby and I fused within the demon world. Not that I didn't know about the half and half or was unfamiliar with its qualities, but this time it was involving my body instead of hers. The half and half always happened in her body, and I obtained her features. Her body never changed except for her eyes. However, the dream showed that when we fused within the demon world, it manipulated itself. Even though I only saw the height and arm difference, I could be certain more changes were involved with that form. Speaking of changes though, I also reflected on the demon body that Abby was forced to have, and that my bastard of a creator was trying to check up on us when he decided to do that. I grew furious from thinking upon it for only a moment, and figured it would be best to just go to him from now on to prevent any more trouble. As much as I didn't want to, I knew I had to go and see him in his office. After yesterday's fiasco with the demon body, I never wanted Satan to come near Abby again. She was so terrified of him and what he did that her face of extreme terror will forever be imprinted in my memory. My mind reimagined the scene as she hung helplessly to the ceiling by the chains while I was pinned to the wall. My eyes could see the amount of fear and pain that flowed through her body, and it made that sinking feeling in my chest act up again. Acting upon the sensation, I decided I was gonna make it my initiative to see Satan for those surprise checkups starting today. So as I was sticking to my decision, I rose up from my bed and got dressed to barge into Satan's office. I knew what I was about to do and how it was going to be risky. It isn't common for demons to intrude on Satan within his office. In fact, he doesn't take very kindly to entitled demons who think they can come in whenever they want. When there was such a person, everyone in the castle could hear him shouting at his intruder. I mean, just with his servants interrupting him, he snarled and yelled. Now, throw me into that mix, and we could have a catastrophe. There would probably be some severe punishments waiting for me upon my arrival, but at this point I didn't care anymore. Abby's safety was much more important than mine. So once I was situated, I headed out the door into the castle to face my worst nightmare. While walking through the streets, bystanders continuously pointed at me and whispered in their groups like the last time I was in town. I assumed it was because of the mark upon my arm again, but yet that wasn't my concern. My mind was set on one objective and one only: talk to Satan as he intended this morning and set the record straight. So as I walked, I ignored the gossip and kept my head high as I advanced towards Satan's headquarters. Later on, I got to my destination and started making my way up the stairs immediately. I had servants trying to stop me in my path and talk me out of my madness. Sadly for them, though, I just shoved them aside and resisted their warning. Once I finally got to his office, I didn't announce myself and barged into the room. Satan immediately turned his head to display a sour face as he stopped talking to Brutus, his assistant. Now, to sidetrack just a little bit, let me explain some things about Brutus. He was a pretty short demon with bright silver hair. His skin tone was a reddish-orange color and wore formal clothes like I did as well. Except he wore a silver button-down shirt with the sleeves buttoned and pulled down to his wrists, while he wore black pants and shoes. I didn't talk to him much ever, even when I was the dealmaker. I probably should have, because he knew Satan's schedule on a day-to-day basis. However, it always seemed like he would walk away from me every time he would see me. There were times I needed to talk to him, and I literally had to tackle him down just for him to stop running away from me. Regardless, he seemed like the Mr. Goody around Satan, so he didn't get into any trouble. I never heard his opinions or interests before, so I couldn't really tell if he enjoyed doing his job or not. Anyhow, I saw him holding some sort of agenda as he was talking to Satan. Once he saw me in the room, he immediately stopped and stared while Satan grew angry with fury.
What the hell do you think you're doing?
He screamed.
You have no right to walk in unannounced.
Just like you have no right interfering with my job. We both know my job doesn't concern you anymore, I shouted back. At that remark, the evil King of Darkness stood up from his desk and gestured Brutus to get lost. As he started to walk past me, I glared at him to dishearten any hopes of talking to Satan again soon, and managed to strike him with fear. I could see his eye twitch very quickly before he ran off like a streak of shit.
Hey, you don't get to fill my assistant with fear. That is my job and my job alone.
We then started to stare at each other in anger as silence repleted the room. The tension between us grew stronger the longer we stood, and Satan started showing it with his physical appearance. His hands were clasped tightly while his face tensed, indicating his clenched jaw. As for me, I stood with my usual contentious expression and walked further into the room where I normally stood. I disregarded my respectful stance as I had none for the abomination in front of me and finally broke the silence. You and me need to have a discussion.
And why would I just willingly have a discussion with you? Especially after you interrupting my meeting with Brutus.
Because it's exactly what you do to me when I am with my protector child. You choose to do that and intrude like I just did. I by no means forced you to. You exclusively wanted to talk to me so badly, but terrorized my child instead. So because you wanted to talk to me so badly, here I am. Start talking. After my promulgation, he commenced an echoey laugh as he walked in front of the desk to face me.
You demanding me to talk is hilarious. This was a lovely prank you pulled, and I very much needed the laugh. Yet all jokes must come to an end. I have more important things to do than chit-chat with someone like your arrogant self. So with that, I'd best be on my way.
He said, passing me to head to the door. Before he made it there, though, I quickly lifted my arm up to use my psychokinesis to shut the door in front of him. He jumped back a little from the surprise and turned his body back to me. I was beyond pissed and was determined to have a conversation. So as he stood with complete surprise, I used my power again to shut all the window curtains in the office to ensure no one was able to see or hear this private discussion. I will speak to you, no exceptions, I demanded, giving him the stink eye.
Now you told me that you didn't know what powers you had. Who's the liar now?
He replied, leaning up against the door with a grin. You asked me that when I first started. You haven't asked me for an update. So you are still the liar. Now you either talk to me now while I am down here or miss your opportunity.
And what makes you think that I'll miss an opportunity? If I didn't sound like a broken record already, I am the ruler of hell, you know. That's a pretty powerful position, and no one screws around with that man in power.
I will refuse to tell you anything unless we are down here in your office. I will not talk about anything involving my job in front of Abby or anyone else. You either do your check-ins within this room or not at all. I don't care how entitled you find yourself to be. So your choice. Take it or leave it. He chuckled for a brief moment and leaned himself off the door to stand properly. In the action of him complying to my wishes, I stood in my normal spot with my perfect posture as he sat himself on his desk and started the conversation.
How long have you had that ability?
I had the force field, psychokinesis, and invisibility powers since day 2 of the partnership with Abby. I haven't discovered anything else.
Well, that isn't a surprise. It takes about 3 years for protector demons to develop all their powers. Yet I wouldn't know that in human time, and I don't care to figure it out. I'll leave that up to you.
Upon that statement, I quickly did the math in my head and guesstimated the time frame to be about a year in human time. Yet I hastily disregarded that fact for the time being. How will I know when all the powers come in? Is there some sort of signal I have to watch for? I asked, trying to hide my frustration.
There will be a signal, but I haven't personally experienced it. So you're going to have to determine what that is later on. However, you don't need to worry about that right now. Like I said earlier, you are still in the beginning stages of this.
Then tell me what I should worry about.
My guess would be on the kind of relationship you want with her. All protector demons form different bonds based on what they want. So you can determine how far you want this relationship to go.
After his comment, I glared at him in shock. I knew that forming a bond with Abby was important to me. I didn't think he would have suggested something like that. Of course, I knew he was leaning more towards the sexual side of things when it came to forming a relationship. Yet again, he did say I could form the bond to my liking. Although that was somewhat useful, I cleared the expression upon my face to remain unreadable.
Speaking of which, how is that going for you?
Satan asked. It's going just fine. Just something we both have to get used to.
You're still trying to get used to it? How long has it been?
A little over 2 months in human time. Otherwise, 12 months in demon time to make it easier for you, I stated. He then gave out a chuckle and said,
There should be no way that you two are not used to this by now.
Well, as you know, we are going through abrupt changes and she is religious. So it's kind of hard for her to get used to me. And no, I'm not the bad guy.
But yet you are the bad guy.
He said with an evil smirk.
You're a demon and you always will be.
At that statement, my anger level started to rise again as I knew I wasn't the bad guy. Don't judge a book by its cover. You should take that piece of advice and use it. Not all demons are bad, and I'm certainly not one of them.
But to her, you will always be the worst thing in the world.
No, I won't, because I have the ability to prove myself to be the good guy. You've seen how she acts towards me already. Don't go and twist things to your liking when they're not true. I knew Satan wasn't going to yield to what I said. He was an expert at getting under my skin, even though I've tried to ignore it. He understood the more I was forced to listen to his accusations, the higher the hatred built within me to a point of lashing out. So he continued on with his rant as I stood in place.
I'm not twisting anything. You know how people can be deceiving and turn on others within an instant. You should know better than anyone. Just look at where it got you. You willingly signed a contract with me without knowing my true personality. Just an unfortunate soul played by the hands of great evil.
As he kept going with his rant, I was surprised that my muscles didn't act up or grow. Just the anger alone would at least shift my muscles to a certain extent, yet nothing happened. However, I felt a hot sensation begin to form within my chest. I mean, I always felt somewhat warm because of being in a fiery environment, but this was different. I tried thinking about what was going on as I stayed listening to the long speech Satan was giving me. The first thing I understood was that it wasn't the eye trick Satan used upon his victims. That normally caused burning along my entire body and not within my chest. He was also too caught up in the moment to do anything to me but antagonize. So upon that conclusion, I had to believe this was something kicking in. Another secret ability that was about to expose itself in my time of frustration, and Satan was sure to find out about it. As he still continued ranting, the heat traveled down my arm and into my right hand. The way it flowed through my limb made me think it was coursing through my veins like blood. I knew it wasn't that lively red liquid that I somehow had as a demon. Yet that's how I somewhat thought about it, as the hotness lingered within one place and slowly started to intensify. My skin started to become irritated and uncomfortable from the extreme heat and felt as if I was going to spontaneously catch on fire. Yet this feeling wasn't going to stop the longer Satan provoked me. This was my body giving me a warning of my anger and how I needed to intervene on his speech. So without hesitation, I decided to speak out. "Sir," I said out of the blue. Upon the interruption, he glared at me as he paused in mid-sentence. I could tell he was furious and he was going to display his aggression.
What could you possibly be interrupting me for this time? You always seem to have shit to say. Do you ever just shut your mouth and let others talk?
I do, when it isn't people like you. I just wanted to say that you should choose your next actions wisely. You don't know what will happen.
Are you threatening me?
He asked, planting his body in front of mine. He stood so close to me that he could physically come in contact with me just by lifting his arm. It was obviously closer than what I was comfortable with, but I couldn't control him. Absolutely not. I wouldn't dream of doing that, I said sarcastically. I'm just telling you that because I am so new to the whole protector demon job that I may have some power malfunctions.
Well, if I recall correctly, you did just fine with your power as you blocked me from leaving. I think you have control over that.
And how the fuck do you know? That was just one power. You said I would gain more. What makes you think you're not in danger of any ability mishaps?
Because for some reason you are different. If I had it my way, you would have never been a protector demon. Then none of this would be happening, and I wouldn't have to check in on you all the time. You could have stayed being the dealmaker, and you wouldn't have little Miss Abby that you seem extremely attached to,
he said, placing his pointer finger on my chest. I am not attached to her, I exclaimed, swatting his hand away from me. As I swung my arm to hit his hand, I saw a streak of red fire separating us for a split second. It was alarming to both of us as we quickly stepped away from each other, trying to figure out what the hell happened. Examining my opposer, I didn't see any flames in sight. Yet my ears could still hear the sizzling and crackling like fire was still present. Becoming slightly worried, I moved my head down to look at my hand. Upon the sight, I seen a red flame that was surrounding my hand as the warmth died down somewhat. As I remained shocked out of my mind, I lifted my arm and hand to see the roaring flames shooting out. My hand wasn't burning or obtaining any injury as it stayed engulfed within the blaze. Although I was still trying to analyze it, Satan decided to shout.
Why did you not tell me about that power?
It didn't activate until now. I tried to warn you. I don't know why this happened or even what is happening to me. I yelled back, confused and angry.
Well, if you want this conversation to end on a better note, you better extinguish that flame now.
After my quick thought, I glared down at my hand and began trying to put out the fire. I wanted to know more about this power. So I first started by closing my hand, but of course that didn't work. That would have been too easy. However, the next best thing was flailing my hand around to put it out. I somehow whisked it away, and Satan finally stepped semi-closer to me while keeping his distance. Why do I have that? I finally asked.
I don't know, Darius. I was hoping you would tell me.
How can I tell you if I am trying to ask you about it? The only thing I can tell you is that it might correlate with my human's needs.
And why would your human need fire?
I don't know, but I learned over time that the protector demon adapts to the child's needs. That's the only thing I can think of at this point. After that fact, he rubbed his face as if he had facial hair. I knew he was thinking. However, that was never a good sign. He was being conniving and pondering something dastardly, which activated the repulsive feeling in my stomach. Once he came up with his solution, he told me straight out, with a grimming smile.
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to check in with you more often.
What? I exclaimed. I understand I said I was going to meet with him for these updates, but I didn't want to gain more visits with this bastard than what I needed. I wanted less. Yet it didn't matter as long as I was the only one meeting with him. So I addressed it. If that's what you really want, then we are doing them down here.
Not if you're gonna burn down my office.
I told you I will no longer have those checkups around Abby before we started. We are not doing that.
It doesn't matter what you say. It's called deceit. I just played you to gain information. Thanks for that.
You fucking bastard! I said, practically snarling at him. I didn't want him involving Abby anymore, and I was furious about his plan. So mad, in fact, that I felt both of my hands warm up again. As I looked upon the heated areas, I saw the flames ignite and blaze with fury.
I will be keeping in touch with you whether you like it or not. Now get the hell out before you destroy my office.
No, you will not come near Abby ever again like you... And suddenly I was teleported back to my house within the demon realm. As I familiarized myself within my environment, I stood agitated from my talk with Satan. But I also felt like a fool for thinking I could change things. How and why did I not see this coming? I should have known better. Satan was not a man of reason. It was either his way or no way. Upon that realization, I grew angrier and the flames on my hands intensified as well. Taking in that sight, I started to try and steady my breathing by thinking about something else. As I allowed my mind to file through my memories, it picked one and opened it to play within my mind. Unfortunately, though, the one it picked was the night Abby had that nightmare about Chad. I saw her scared expression clear as day, and how unsettled she was by everything. However, as the memory continued, it showed how I was able to calm her down and put her back to sleep with the face trigger I used on Damien. Then upon that reflection, another memory overrode the first, and I started to envision a different memory from when I was alive. I was sitting on my son's bed, leaning against his headboard as he was laying down next to me. It was nighttime and Damien's eyes were shut tight as he was trying to sleep. Yet, once he was frustrated enough, he shook his little body to open his eyes and turned his head to me.
Dad, I can't sleep. My body won't let me.
Are you just telling me that, or does someone just not want to? I said gently.
No, I'm serious. You saw me trying.
Yes, I did. But no one clenches their eyes shut to sleep. You have to relax.
What does that mean?
It means that you calm yourself down to a point where you stop worrying about everything, and your muscles release all the tension from moving.
Oh. Well, can you help me relax?
He asked with his puppy dog eyes. Of course, at the sight of that, I couldn't say no, so I waved him to come close and start cuddling with me. As he situated himself, I took my finger and brought it to the little space between his eyebrows. From there, I brushed it down to the tip of his nose and repeated the action several times. Along with that, I also sang him his lullaby that I wrote to soothe him as much as possible. Then, I would stay in his little bed until I knew he was fully asleep. As my eyes took in the sleeping image of my son, I would kiss his head and tuck him in under the covers and head off to bed myself to sleep with Nala. Yet the memory faded before I could enjoy more of it, and I opened my eyes to reveal the fire was gone. Upon the realization, I sat in my desk stool, wallowing upon the confusing new ability and the events that led up to it. The look upon Satan's face was almost priceless as he was shocked and surprised at the sudden power. But I also wondered why he reacted that way. He seemed a little skittish towards the end of our discussion when the flames intensified. There should be no reason for him to worry. He was fireproof. He had the power himself because of him being the overlord of hell. He had access to all the power. Another fact to mention is that I knew I wasn't going to burn his office, as it was also fireproof. As I was reflecting upon that, an unexpected beating pain arose within my chest. I placed my hand on top of the pain where I felt the rhythmic pain and continued to concentrate on my body. Studying the placement along with the kind of tempo it presented, it gave me one impossible conclusion that made me gasp. For all the facts I gathered told me I had a heartbeat. I was used to this feeling within Abby's body, but as it now pounded ferociously within mine was extremely foreign. When I became a demon, I lost it, didn't I? I didn't even know I had a heart existing within my body. Yet this was telling me different. As the beating kept happening, I decided to grab the Powers book to try and find the answers to my situation. Upon reading, I found the firepower section and read every word of it. It talked about how only 25% of demons even have any sort of flame power, and how it was even more rare for protector demons to have. For most of the fire abilities, it says that the flames are conjured through the hands. However, it can differ depending on the kind of power it was. As I kept searching, I endlessly found ones that were close to mine but yet not an exact match. Nothing mentioned the heartbeat sensation that could be involved with it. To be honest, I never thought I would be joyous and nervous about having some sort of heartbeat again. I never approached this kind of issue before, and it acted up whenever the power was used from what I can tell so far. I knew my hypothesis had to be somewhat correct, as after about 10 demon minutes of the heartbeat, it stopped and everything felt normal. Once I finally started to settle and calm myself down, I sat in my chair clueless on what the hell was wrong with me. This was the second supernatural power now that I had to find out on my own. There were no tips or instructions on the matter that I could follow and learn from. It was another aspect of myself that I had to figure out along with the muscular growth. There had to be something bigger happening here. There had to be a reason why Satan reacted the way he did. As confusing as it may sound, there was a bigger puzzle that had to be solved in order to see the full picture. However, I was left impatiently waiting for it to solve itself. Until then, the only thing I can do is move forward and hopefully find out what's going on over time.
This has been Chapter 24, Firing Up, from the book The Snake and the Rose. Tune in to the next video for Chapter 25. Thank you for listening.